Then we cross to my colleague, SABC News reporter Vanessa Puna, who's been following the address. A very good afternoon to you, Vanessa. You also spoke about the need to take care of the problem of gender-based violence that we have across South Africa.
Yes, a very warm good afternoon to you. And indeed, the Premier has made mention of the issue of gender-based violence, calling it a major concern, not just here in the Western Cape, but also across South Africa. One of the announcements that he has made today is the establishment of a violence prevention unit, which will be established within the Department of Health. This, of course, will take all 13 departments and work together to reduce violence. He made mention of the fact that the province has seen a decrease in its murder rate, and those specifically in the areas where LEAP, Law Enforcement Advancement Program officers have been deployed. But let me just go back a bit and talk about some of the key announcements that the Premier has made. He is joining me now, so I'll ask him to just elaborate a bit in terms of those announcements. One of the first announcements indeed was that a new Department of Infrastructure will be established in the province. This, of course, will see the merging of the Department of Human Settlements as well as components of public works and roads programs. And then also there will be a Department of Mobility created. So I'm joined now by Premier Alan Winde. Premier, a very warm good afternoon to you. I'm not going to ask you to repeat your entire speech as you've delivered here in the Veldhof Town Hall, but let's talk about those key announcements that you've made in terms of the state of the Western Cape. Let's talk about the second pandemic, which you refer to as joblessness, and how the Western Cape, what is done, how it's going to tackle this issue after 2 years of an economy ravaged by COVID-19.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to use the lessons from COVID-19, how we coalesced, how we energized, and how we focused on making sure that we protected citizens. We gave a world-class response to COVID-19. Now, how do we take that same energy and put it into jobs, the second pandemic of poverty and unemployment? And so it all comes together in that apex of jobs. And what are the inhibiting factors? We all know that there's an infrastructure shortfall, whether it's energy infrastructure or rail infrastructure. It's not able to deliver for the economy, and it happens in this province. So instead of saying, oh, but that's not us, how do we create a department whose responsibility is giving our own infrastructure investment, but also coalescing, like in COVID-19, bringing together the different role players and making sure that we're moving the infrastructure enabling environment for investors to the next level. The same thing is with mobility. Mobility is key for economic growth. If people can't get to the hotel, the tourism won't happen. If the airport upgrade doesn't, the tourism won't happen. If people can't get their goods to market, they can't grow their businesses. So mobility is key. We know congestion in the city of Cape Town is a big issue. So it's about congestion, it's about public transport, it's about also focusing. It's not just another branch in a department, it's focusing on mobility. And then, of course, for me, the safety plan, violence, I'm really happy with the early sort of signs in reducing the murder rate in those hotspot deployed areas. That must say something. But the real issue is the long-term approach, and that's violence prevention. So now, for the first time in South Africa, we're actually creating a dedicated unit for violence prevention. It's similar to models that we've seen in other parts of the world. It resides in the Department of Health, because they have a lot of the data of where trauma presents, or GBV presents, or whatever those issues are in violence presents in our hospitals. So that data must be used. And then, of course, it's the whole of government. So all departments have a role to play. Keep kids in school. Make sure that those young boys that are perhaps joining gangs or not joining gangs, they're going in to be brought back into the system so that they become the future entrepreneurs. Each department has a role. The first 1,000 days, all of these are roles in violence prevention. And that's the long-term play to make sure that we actually deal with crime from a causality point of view. And it's centered in health now.
Premier, you're changing the name of the Department of Community Safety. Why?
So that's, I think it's clear to clearly point out to both people that work there, but also the rest of the province that, I've always said that we need to devolve power. But while we can't devolve power, we will have oversight over police, the deployment. We ask our questions, why are there so many police officers in this station and so few in that police station? We will up our game on oversight. And, if we just say it, that's one thing. But we actually symbolize it through a department's name, which says the Department of Police Oversight and Community Safety. It just takes it to the next level. So that's they do great work already. We need to push it to the next level.
Premier, before I let you go, you talked about evidence-based data showing that 90% of people in the Western Cape have immunity against COVID-19, and you are insistent and persistent in your call that the state of disaster is lifted. Let's talk about where the Western Cape is today versus a year ago in terms of the economy. How has the economy recovered? Has it recovered? What is the exact number of unemployment? And of course, your reasoning for wanting to tackle the issue of joblessness with these infrastructure department and projects, etc.
So absolutely. We still see our unemployment rate growing again by another 132,000 jobs. And we need to reverse that. We might be the best job absorption rate in the country, or the lowest unemployment rate altogether, but that's not good enough. And I think post the pandemic, we now need to really focus on getting those jobs back. And so these initiatives are focused at taking us to the next level in jobs. We've got to normalize the pandemic on how we deal with it. Quite frankly, we lose more people to TB than to COVID-19 now. And so we've got to focus on normal healthcare. We've got to focus on the economy, getting investment into the market, fixing those things that are broken so that we can actually take ourselves to the next level.
Premier, thank you so much for your time. Of course, speaking to us there, just to elaborate a bit on his State of the Province address, Premier of the Western Cape, Alan Winde, speaking to us here in Veldrif, where for the third time this address is held outside of the chambers in the provincial legislature in Cape Town.
Vanessa Puna, thanks for that update.